Imagine falling 3 kilometers direct strapped to a seat from a plane torn apart by lightning, landing alive in the Amazon jungle. This is not a fictional story, but the incredible truth of Julian Kupke. This video will take you on a breathtaking journey, from the cabin of a passenger plane at 3,000 meters above sea level to the wildest heart of the rainforest. We are about to discover how a 17-year-old girl defied death not once but twice and fought with indomitable strength against all odds. Get ready, because Julian Kupke's story is one that will leave you breathless, making you understand how tenacious the human spirit is. December 1971. In Lima, Peru, a 17-year-old student, Julian Kupche, is ready to board Lanza Flight 508. His goal is to reunite with his father, a famous zoologist, to celebrate Christmas. With her is her mother, an ornithologist. They are not simple passengers. Julianne grew up in the Amazon years among wild flora and fauna, thanks to the work of her parents, German scientists, who have dedicated their lives to the study of that environment. That knowledge, assimilated since she was a child, will prove to be her only unexpected salvation. The flight takes off without problems, but soon the weather conditions change dramatically. The plane heads towards a majestic storm, a gigantic cumulonimbus cloud that rises menacingly in the sky. Passengers aboard the Lockheed Electra, a 4-engine turboprop plane, look out the windows with some apprehension. Some pray, others cling to the armrests of their seats, then panic sets in. The plane enters the storm, the noise of the engines mixing with the din of rain and thunder. Suddenly, a blinding bolt of lightning strikes the starboard wing, a blinding flash, a deafening roar that rends the air. The plane begins to vibrate violently, like a toy shaken by an invisible hand. Julianne would later recall the deafening chaos that followed, a mixture of screams and shouts. The lights go out, then come back on dimly. The wing, struck by lightning, catches fire, and the structure of the plane begins to collapse. Terror grips everyone. Julianne hears her mother say, "It's over now," and in an instant the world turns upside down. The floor of the plane opens up, swallowing up rows of seats and passengers. The air pressure tears off parts of the fuselage. The plane disintegrates in flight at about 3,000 meters altitude, 3 kilometers above the dense Amazon jungle canopy. Julianne doesn't remember the impact. Her memory of that moment is fragmented, clouded by trauma. She wakes up still strapped to her seat, in total darkness, but no longer in the twisted metal of the plane. Around her, the deafening noise of the engine had transformed into the oppressive, eerie silence of the rainforest. She survived the fall. It's an inexplicable miracle. His seat was probably still attached to a piece of the plane large enough to slow his fall, or perhaps the tangle of thick vegetation below cushioned the impact in an incredible way. She was alone, completely alone, in the heart of one of the most inhospitable forests in the world. When she wakes up, she is still dazed and disoriented. He has a deep laceration on his right arm, one eye almost closed due to swelling, and a broken collarbone. But she's alive. His first thought goes to his mother. He looks for her, he calls her, but silence is the only answer. Soon after, the bitter reality dawns on her. She is the only visible survivor, but she's not entirely unprepared. Despite her young age, Julianne had one advantage that no other passenger had: her childhood. He had spent years living with his parents at the research station they founded in the Amazon. He had learned to recognize plants, animals, to understand the sounds of the jungle, and most importantly, he had learned the basic rules for surviving in that wild environment. Her parents had always taught her to read the forest. This wasn't a vacation, it was home, in a way. The next day, among the wreckage and scattered bodies, Julian finds a bag of candy, her only source of nourishment for days. But hunger is the least of his problems. He needs to get out of there. He recalls a crucial piece of advice from his father: if you get lost in the jungle, always follow the water. Streams lead to bigger rivers, and bigger rivers lead to civilization. And so, with this single precious indication, Julian begins her desperate journey. The jungle is not a welcoming place. It is a tangle of thick vegetation, buzzing insects, hidden animals, and dangers at every turn. Every movement is a challenge. He walks with difficulty, limping, his body aching from wounds and bumps. His feet are wounded, his clothes are torn. The scorching sun alternates with torrential rain, and the night brings a damp cold and the constant fear of what lurks in the shadows. Every day is a battle. It feeds on berries that it recognizes as edible, or on whatever it can find. Every now and then, she hears the sound of search planes overhead, but the thick tree canopy prevents her from being seen. Hope lights up and goes out like a candle in the wind. It moves following the sound of the water, finding ever larger streams, transforming its march into a real swim against the current, sometimes clinging to tree trunks and branches to avoid being carried away by the current. The jungle is full of invisible threats: poisonous snakes, giant spiders, alligators hiding in the murky waters. But the most constant and insidious threat is insects. Fly larvae lay eggs in his wounds, which quickly become infected. The laceration on her arm begins to swell, filled with parasites that are eating away at her flesh. The pain is excruciating, but it can't stop. To stop means to die. 11 days. 11 days of absolute solitude, constant fear, physical and mental pain. 11 days of eating almost nothing, sleeping on alert among the roots of trees, fighting against the despair that tries to overwhelm her. Then a sign, a boat. Not a sign of civilization, but of human presence. His hope is rekindled. Following the river, he sees a small shelter, a wooden hut. It's empty, but not completely abandoned. Here you will find a can of gasoline. It recalls an ancient Amazonian folk belief: gasoline can be used to extract maggots from wounds. With incredible willpower, he pours gasoline on his most serious wound, his infected arm. The pain is excruciating, he screams, but the larvae begin to come out. It's a chilling relief. The next morning, the woodcutters who use the hut for shelter find it. At first they are scared. They think it is a forest spirit, an emaciated and wounded figure coming out of the green hell. But when Julian, in Spanish, explains her story, terror turns to disbelief and then to compassion. They look after her as best they can, offer her food, and take her in their canoe to the nearest town. After a grueling journey along the river, Julian is finally handed over to the authorities. She's safe. His story is going around the world, an incredible tale of resilience and survival. Julian reunites with her father, who had already lost hope. His wounds are healed, and with time, his emotional scars begin to heal as well. Despite the trauma, Julianne continued to live a life dedicated to science, just like her parents, becoming a zoologist and ornithologist. She devoted much of her career to studying and protecting the very Amazon that nearly swallowed her. His incredible adventure is a monument to the strength of the human spirit, the ability to adapt and hope in extreme conditions. Julian Kupke's story reminds us that even when all seems lost, sometimes life finds a way to hold on, to fight, and incredibly to win.